have an embargo call, so Charlie and I, so we'll have to attend that for 2:00, and then we'll send a message when we can resume.
What kind of call is that?
It's just an embargo call, so it's just for superintendents and chairs. So welcome back, everybody, and we will resume our meeting. And we are on 7.4.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With regards to the draft of a budget, I regretfully informed the superintendent last week with the kind of late finalization of grant funding, some of the additional responsibilities that this spring and supporting CTK and through their incident, as well as trying to train staff. I'm unable to have the budget ready for the Finance Committee last week for them to review, and therefore do not have the budget ready for this week for board approval. In my discussions with the superintendent, I proposed the following kind of chain of events. One is that I'll continue to work on the budget and have a draft budget ready for May 31st. Submit that draft budget to the province with the advisement that it is going to the board at their June meeting for approval. And then follow the regular course where on June 9th, the Finance Committee would review the budget draft and then bring it forward after their review to the board for review and final approval. Superintendent was supportive of that. When I broached the subject with the Finance Committee, I'll let them speak to that in terms of their support. And also I've had a discussion with Alberta Education. They are supportive of those courses of action. May 31st, as long as they have some statistics with regards to staffing levels and students that they can compile for the minister, knowing that there's a proviso there that the board approval would be happening subsequently, but not anticipating at this point that there'd be a lot of changes to the actual fiscal numbers that are reported in that budget document. They are fine with that as well. So I've had that discussion as part of proposing this to the board. So I want to make the trustees all aware, and I'm not sure if Donna, as chair of the Finance Committee, wants to speak to their thoughts.
As chair of the Finance Committee, we discussed this and we were in agreement with this plan of action.
So I guess the only other option would be to have a special board meeting to approve the draft budget.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'd have it ready for if you wish to have the Finance Committee to review it prior to going to the board for all of those sequence of events at this point.
We are meeting on June 9th, and you thought you would have it ready for then?
That's correct.
And then we could bring it to the board in June meeting if that would be
But doesn't it have to be into Alberta Ed by May 31st?
The deadline for it is May 31st, yes. And that's why I talked to the province about submitting a draft budget pending board approval. And they are satisfied with that.
So then we would have to advise them of our approval, after the fact?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the board would have a final approval of that. And that final approved budget would be the one submitted to the province officially from the division.
Okay, that's what I was concerned about, that making sure that the board had, because that is the board's responsibility to make sure that the approved budget goes in as part of what our responsibility. Yeah.
Madam Chair, I thought about that as well, but the timelines is just a week and two difference between the 31st and when we approve it finally on the 16th. And if the province is already in acceptance of the draft, which is basically staffing, student numbers, and a couple of things that comes with it, then we should be able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and we definitely appreciate the different circumstances that we're under this year. So we definitely appreciate that, Ed. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and to the board.
Okay. Okay. So 7.5. And that would be online programming for Charlie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So there's a backgrounder in your agenda that I want to review with trustees. And at the end, I'll be looking for a recommendation from the board. So I'll walk you through kind of what's on this in this background document, and we can definitely have any discussion as we move through it. Please don't hesitate to interrupt me if you have a question. So the board has been previously made aware of the survey that was done in March, but in essence, 44.2% of the parents that were surveyed said that they want their children to go back to school next year. 15.6% said they want to be online no matter what. And 40.2%, which is a large chunk of people, said it depends on the state of COVID. So we know that there are currently 513 online students. So if we kind of use those numbers, there's a potential of about 286, 300 students that might be online next year. However, we really don't know what the state of COVID will be. So we're at a point where we have to have a discussion about what do we want to do as Start Catholic. So I checked with the neighboring divisions, and I'll just kind of highlight their thoughts as outlined in the table. So Wolf Creek, they are going to offer a program for about 100 students, and they are students that have verified health concerns. They might be immune compromised, diabetes, it has to be a medical condition. They'll offer an online program only for those students. It's not going to be whoever wants one. Black Gold, 3/4 of their families said that they want to return back in person. That leaves about 400 online. Black Gold is saying they're going to offer a program, but it may only be for the first semester, not an entire year. So they're going to only commit to that timeline. Wild Rose has 370 online students right now, they started, and they're now down at 260. When they surveyed their families, only 60 indicated they wanted to stay online. And so that wasn't very much. However, they soon saw a spike after their survey. So they, superintendent says if we surveyed them now, we might have a lot more. But for 60 students, they may decide to offer a program in Drayton Valley that would be staffed with 2 or 3 teachers. Wetaskiwin, they surveyed their parents. There's not enough interest to do an online program. They're not going to do an online program. That's kind of our sister boards and what they're doing. Now, moving to the second page, there are some considerations that we learned, lessons learned from this year have kind of implications that need to be considered. First off, it needs to have its own calendar. If we have an online school, it needs to be its own school with its own calendar. It has to be an independent school with a FTE for a principal and an office assistant, an admin assistant. To that end, it should have its very own budget. So keep that in mind, that it's kind of has to be a new school for STAR. This year, it was kind of just an extension of our schools. So kids were coded to the online school, they were coded to their home school. In this new model, they would belong only to one school, the online school. One of the ways that we could proceed, we could survey our parents kind of between June 20th and August 1st. Parents would be allowed to change their mind. They could submit something on June 20th, and then COVID numbers could either go up or down, and parents could change their mind right up until August 1st. At some point, we have to lock them in because we have to staff that school, as you saw there in the considerations. We have to decide, if we're going to do it, we've got to staff it financially. So we also have kind of a table of opportunities and challenges that I want to speak to, and I'll start with the opportunities. First off, There were 15% of those parents that said, we want an online school no matter what. So by offering an online school, they would be happy. They'd be like, thank you, that's what we wanted. We know that if we offered an online school, we would reduce the risk that they would leave us to go to another division. We have learned some lessons of best practices this year, so we would retain that experience and knowledge of how to do that programming. We know that there is a segment of students that thrive in that environment. It was a good program for them. So they would, continue to thrive in that program. The challenges, let's look at those. So we have set aside $132,000 out of contingency to support an online school. If we were to offer an online school, all the other monies to support that online school would have to come back out of the schools. Okay, so what I mean by that is this. To run an online school, Ed and I did some preliminary math, would be about 1.1 million. So if we have 132,000 set aside for it, we would have to pull $900,000 roughly out of the schools to support the online schools. That's a challenge. It's a big challenge. It's the one that I think is the biggest challenge. So I want you to envision a school like Father Lacombe. Father Lacombe has one class in every grade for the most part. So if they lose 20 students to the online program and we have to pull 100,000 out of their school, you can see that that's problematic because they can't just lose a teacher. If those 20 kids are spread across K-9, it's not like they can say, yeah, take one of our teachers. They have to have one grade in every, or one class in every grade. So it's problematic in that sense that depending on how a school is impacted, it could really cripple them financially. This year, we relied on federal money to make this program work to a large extent. We had a lot of money, almost 2 million, to make this happen. So I put it as a challenge. To me, it's the biggest challenge. Financially, it could really impact some schools. The third bullet of challenges is on the other side for opportunities, some students thrive. On the flip side, some students didn't do much. They weren't very engaged. Their parents weren't very effective in helping them. And it really does depend on the parent, especially for the younger kids. That is a challenge for some. It's not a great model for K-3. I mean, you can imagine learning to read online is not the best mode. The fourth bullet, depending on registration, there's a chance there that dispersion across grade levels might be very unequal. So you might have 10 kids in grade 1, 2 kids in grade 2, 3 kids in grade 3, and 19 kids in grade 4. How do you program for that? It's tough to ask a teacher to do 3 grades, for example, because that's a lot of curriculum and a lot of structure challenges. So that is a challenge. And then the last one, should vaccines continue to be administered at an increasing rate, parents may want to switch. So what I mean by that is, if we say to parents, you're locked in August 1st, what happens on September 30th or October 10th when case rates might be 100 cases a day? Parents might not be very afraid anymore and say, I want back into the school. That's going to be a challenge, because if you say to them, sorry, you're stuck there till the end of the first semester, they may be angry, they may leave to go to another division. There will be pressure for administrators to take those kids. So I see that as a challenge. So that's a bit of a background document about where we're at. Of course, the big unknown is the state of COVID and where it's going to be as we move forward in the next few months. But what I would like trustees and the board to give administration some direction on are, do you want us to proceed with a survey? June 20th to August 1st, for example. That's kind of option 1. Option 2 is, we don't want Star Catholic to have an online school. Another option would be, it depends on the numbers, and we're going to let administration make that decision. And then the last one, it could be, depending on the numbers, we want to have a special board meeting August 2nd. Review the numbers and make a decision as a division. So those are kind of the factors, but I am looking for some direction from trustees. This is something, as you can imagine, if administration makes a decision, you may hear from parents saying, hey, you know, why is Star Catholic doing this or not doing that? And it won't just be about online. It could be about, for example, the Father Lacombe School. You know, we have no EAs, or we lost our family school liaison worker because we had to make cuts. So you may have questions that you have to answer politically from parents on both ends of that spectrum. But I'm not really comfortable just making that decision solely by myself without your feedback and input.
Okay, I'll open it up for trustees for comments and questions. Trustee Efron?
Oh, I wasn't,
Oh, sorry. I thought you're,
sorry.
no worries. I have a quick question. So does homeschooling, is that an option at all? Or I know we don't have any opportunity there too, but does homeschooling cost less, or what is the support on that? Like, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, so homeschooling, the difference between homeschooling and online is homeschooling, the parent is responsible for administering the program.
Yeah,
In an online program, our teachers are responsible for the programming.
yeah,
Well, that's the big difference. Now, homeschooling, we don't have a homeschooling association, but there also has some component of supervision by the board. So it could be home visits, you know, once or twice a year. And in those situations, the board does usually remit to parents a certain amount of money, but it doesn't have the same level of cost and support by.
yeah. Yeah, I was just wondering if that's an option at all, or if that was thought about for going forward. Trustee Tugwood, you had a question?
I can speak a little bit to homeschooling because my daughter is a homeschooling facilitator in Calgary, and she has 163 students, all from grade 1 to grade 12. So she has to do so many home visits, and right now she's doing them virtually. Before COVID, she would she would do 2 a year, and she would monitor their progress. And for the high school kids, she had to monitor it a lot closer to be part of the exams and so on. But it is, the parents receive, I think it's 800. So it is quite a bit less for the government. Government saves quite a bit of money on it. So
Yeah, I think
it's
the
a whole
struggle
different,
with
whole different
homeschooling,
ballgame.
yeah, is you may lose those students.
Yeah.
To, you know, permanently, or they're really not your students, I guess. I'm not sure, but
No, you would lose
anyhow,
the students. They've
yeah, and
increased their students enormously since the pandemic, and they're expecting that if vaccines are in and the numbers are way down, that they're going to be losing students. That's what they're anticipating. So,
Trustee Sirois, do you have a comment about a recommendation or?
Sounds to me like we have a real dilemma. Our sister boards, they wouldn't be starting new schools, though, would they, Charlie, with new principals and teachers?
Yeah.
Are we the only one that would be like a new school?
No, they could likely be doing the same thing. Like, I'll just remind the board that we appointed Chris Zarsky as the principal of the online school this year.
Mhm.
He was that, so we can continue to do that. But however, next year we will have, like, because we suspended a lot of our professional development this year. So it freed Chris up to be the online principal. We can't do that next year, right? Because we're going to do professional learning again. So the issue is we need a principal for that school. And the other divisions will have the same challenges. They may have put a principal in, a lot of them put a principal in place already this year.
Well, I think the survey, more surveying we might get a more accurate answer. Because as you say, it can change depending on COVID. After the first while, they might feel comfortable sending them back, or vice versa.
Thank you, Trustee Sirois. I think, I think things are improving, and a survey from June 20th could definitely give us more accurate numbers. Because really that's what we have to base the decision on is that number of enrollment. Trustee Spidich or Trustee Efron, do you have a recommendation at all for admin?
Believe we will. This is a pandemic, and just like everything that we all know, nobody has the end date for this. So registration has been ongoing. I know people have received the demographic returns and all of that. So I would rather prefer we do the survey when we close it, and then aim at the 2nd or the 3rd for an emergency meeting to make that decision. At that time, we have good figures and know where we go, right? Because we're talking about $1 million project for a year. Yeah. So I would rather
Makes sense to do the survey.
do that. Yeah, survey closed, because things will be changing, right? And then people will know where they stand at least by then.
Okay, so I'm hearing to run another survey at June 20th, and then a special board meeting to kind of firm up like August 2nd or 3rd.
So if I could make a suggestion, I'm just looking at the calendar. August 2nd is Heritage Day. Obviously, that's not a good time to meet.
No,
Maybe we would put an end date, like I had put August 1st. That's a Sunday. That doesn't give administration time to compile the numbers. So perhaps we could close the survey on, July 28th as an example, with a special board meeting maybe on August 3rd. How does that sound?
yeah, that sounds good.
But as well, I will encourage especially multiple reminders through school reminders to parents, so that they are participating in the survey. Because if the survey comes back with only 100 students or 100 families, that really wouldn't be serving us any good to make a decision like that. So if you don't mind, we can exercise constantly reminding parents to please, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is that all you need for that, Charlie?
Yeah, so I just want to confirm then. So we'll do a survey, but we're only asking those families that want online learning to
Yeah.
register. We're not asking for everybody to make their indication. So we may only get 100 responses, right? That'll mean to us, there's only 100 families that are, or kids that are interested.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
So, and then if, just for further clarity, on August 3rd, administration will bring forward a recommendation. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, and do you have a preference for a time of day for a meeting on August 3rd? That's a
I'm
Tuesday,
thinking-
right after that long weekend.
Yeah. So I'm thinking probably 4 o'clock. Who else stands up for 4?
The first thing in the morning, like 9 a.m. Whatever
Difficult for
the
those that are
majority-
working.
Yeah, for myself and Henry, we're both working. We
And,
work during the day, that day and Dan. So I think we have to go with 4 o'clock.
Okay,
yeah,
Does
thank
that
you.
work? Can we make that work?
Yep.
Does that work for you, Trustee Spidich?
Yeah, I can get out a little early.
Okay,
thank you.
okay, good. 7.6, and this also is Charlie, just to give us the next update.
Right. Just finding my spot in the agenda here. So there a couple of different bullets here in the Beaumont High School item. So the first one that I need to make trustees aware of is, you may recall that we asked the city of Beaumont for a letter to submit with the division's capital plan, saying that if Alberta Ed were to award us a high school, we would service a site so that we could proceed. So the city of Beaumont has recently told us that they're not going to do that. What they will commit to is say that they'll cooperate with the developers to service sites as they become available. It's non-committal, very non-committal. In fact, Alberta Ed has said to us, that's not going to cut it. So we're back to this again, where the cities, and I understand their position. They're kind of caught against, between a rock and a hard place. They're stuck. They don't have the finances to service a site themselves. So they have to depend on the developer who has to sell lots, et cetera, and it goes around and around. So that's the first thing. So the board, we have to talk about, okay, what do we do with that information? Because as it is, we likely will never be awarded a project there by Alberta Ed until there's a better commitment from the city. So I know Ed has reached out to the city and said, okay, understand that that's kind of not good enough for us. And they said, well, you talk to us all you want, we can't do anything about it. It's kind of their position. So that's the first part. So I don't know, maybe we'll just stop there before we get into the next item. Are there any questions or how do we proceed?
Trustee Sirwa, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say, so they really changed their stance, because before Ed said that they were ready to give us a letter in 10 days. So they've totally changed their stance, it sounds like.
Well, they did give us a letter, just didn't say what it needed to say on it.
Right, that's not good. Yeah.
So there's probably, an advocacy piece that can happen in Beaumont there with parents, or, a public forum, something like that, or trustees meeting with the mayor and council again.
What about the letter that you were going to try and get from Minister LaGrange? First, we said we had tried getting the commitment from the city of Beaumont, so that didn't happen. And then we had talked about getting a letter from the ministry saying that if we give you permission for a build, then you said that then Beaumont may agree to it. Do you recall that conversation, Charlie?
I'm not sure. What I recall from the letter was that should the ministry give us design funding,
Yes.
then the city would make something happen.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Right? But that's the province would have to make an announcement of a new high school, and phase one is design funding. That's what happened with the Francophone board.
Okay.
So I think the barrier is the city of Beaumont. Like, I think that's where where we need to make some progress. So is this something that long range planning would want to, look at what the next steps are, like for advocacy right in that community with parents, either attending the public forum portion of a council meeting, or I don't know, there's some ideas there.
Yeah, I think that you could definitely attend. We know the interest is there. We've already had lots of letters. in support of the high school. The support is there, the interest is there. Yes.
Right. So would long-range planning like to plan a next step? Like that would include advocacy with parents or?
Sure.
I think the last time, Charlie and I we talked about, or it was a while back that we talked about attending the public forum portion of a city council meeting.
Yeah, and that was going to be the board chair, the local trustee, and myself would attend the public forum of a council meeting.
Right.
Well, I mean,
And-
that can be actioned without a long-range planning meeting.
Yeah. And perhaps we would need a parent, like a council chair, school council chair from one of the schools there. So, okay, so is that next steps? Should we consider that as next steps or?
I would be in agreement with that. I think it's a great idea, but some of the people who have gone through this in other schools may have a bit more experience, so they perhaps could help us in this endeavor.
Madam Chair.
So I guess what we could do is yourself and I could kind of meet with the school council chair, and we could kind of like pick the next council meeting and kind of prepare what we'd want to be saying at the public forum. That's our concern. We need serviced sites in Beaumont for a Catholic high school. That is part of our capital plan, and we're making it a public, in the public realm that, this is a need in Beaumont. So,
Would that be in person?
yeah, that's in person. So everybody has the opportunity to attend a public forum at the council meetings of a town or a city, and you have the opportunity to speak to the council and mayor and give them, your concern or what you'd like them to consider. And it brings it to the attention of the community that there is no service sites, and it's a barrier for our school board to go forward in pursuing our capital plan.
Yes, that sounds good. I understand that. What I was thinking, Michelle, was in COVID, are we going to be meeting in person?
Oh, I see. Sorry. Yes. Well, they would still have to have an opportunity for a public forum. So you and me could work on that. How about we work on that, and we'll work on the schedule and what the schedule looks like and what the format is and how we do that.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay. And we'll rally Charlie to be with us.
I will just mention that their meetings are on the second and fourth Tuesday. I just had a look.
Okay.
But if they're like our board meetings, you're probably on a deadline to submit a request to be on the public forum. So we'll have to have a look at that as well.
Okay. Okay. We'll definitely follow up and start that process. Okay.
So
And-
moving
go
on
ahead.
to the second part of that item, which is bus transportation for 21-22. I would like to bring to the trustees' attention that there currently are 7 students requesting transportation to Christ the King. Now, the board previously made a motion that there would have to be a threshold of 10 to run a bus. I told Acting Principal Dean Heck that I would speak to the trustees, just confirm that. So I guess I'm asking, does the board wish to hold firm to the 10, or do you wish to provide busing for 7? Knowing the kind of the context here with the rest of it. So why we put this as the second bullet, because it might be a while before the city moves on a site. So I'm bringing it to your attention before I kind of close the door on 7 families. I want to make sure that that's, continues to be the board's position.
Okay, so trustees, we need some feedback on this. Our original motion was that we would support a bus if there was 10 students. Right now there's 7. And do we want to stick hard to that? Or allow some leeway? It's an increase of about 5 students, I believe, from last year. So, trustee F1?
I think 3. So, Madam Chair, I would suggest we hold fast to that. The numbers may change because this is a request. At the end of the day, the financial impact is something else we have to look at as well, right? Probably, and I know we'll be supporting them with whatever money. So that could again go back to the school to have some discussions and see. I'm sure there will be some more other parents coming up if the need arise to make it 10 or 11. So I'll hold fast to the 10.
Okay, trustee Tugwood?
I also think we will have to hold fast because to change it for one community, we'd have to change it for all the communities. Of course, it would have to go across the board, and that would be quite an impact on our budget. I wish I could say, sure, do 7, but I think budget-wise, I think we have to stick to the 10.
Trustee Sirois?
Yes, I agree with Donna and Henry. I think it's very costly. So, and Donna said, we can't change it all the time or change it from one to the other. So I think we should stick with 10.
Okay, trustee Spitich, did you have any comments?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, even at 10, we're nowhere near break even. So, yeah, I agree.
Okay, so that's the direction.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, 7.7. So I just added this to the agenda. I was hoping that we could have a resource for trustees to be able to speak really well about reserves, because this continues to be a conversation by government that we need to use up our reserves, right? And we have been very diligent about using our reserves, and we need to be able to speak well to our MLAs about that. So I was wondering if Ed would have something that we could use from our the presentation that we had on our profile with the graphs, comparing us to our cohorts and the provincial, just something very handy that we would be able to use.
So I guess, make sure I'm unmuted. What I've got up here is the funding profile, or the financial profile that was presented in February. I guess what you're looking for is maybe this chart in terms of accumulated operating surplus as a percent of our expenses, and where we stand with those cohorts, and then how we compare on a per student basis there. There is some text around that in the body of the report. And perhaps when we do the transfers to reserve motion or make a recommendation, we do have an outline of what reserves we have, whether they're operating or capital, that would add some detail to that. That's what we have currently, and I could probably combine this area as well as that one, sort of as what I would call a half sheet or kind of a church bulletin sort of format, so that you could have it in easily at hand, or take it to a meeting per se.
Okay, would trustees be in favor of that, just having that as a resource? So when you do need to speak to reserves and you do have an opportunity in your community to speak to your MLA, you have the the actuals.
Yeah, you can unshare now. So I can see everybody's face. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Trustee Eflin.
I believe that was our recommendation from the last Finance Committee meeting, that Ed was going to consolidate it to make sure that they are always attached to our meetings with MLAs. So we show them how we stand with the rest of our cohorts. Yeah. So I believe that we all did agree on that from the last time.
Okay, so if Ed's able to prepare that just for trustees to have on hand, and then as well for the next MLA meeting, that it's a point of conversation as well. Trustee Tugwood?
I think it would be good to have on hand to deal with the public too, because
Yes.
whenever the education minister, she always mentions the huge reserves that we have. And people have said, well, you have all this money, why are you not spending it? So it would be nice to have some actual paper to show people.
In your community, yeah.
In the community,
excellent.
that's what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, good. Charlie?
So just, Ed, I don't want to speak for you, but I know that the reserves at any point in time vary. So what is it you're looking for a document with after the AFS? Do you want it? I guess, Ed, maybe you can pipe in here, but this could look different at different times of the year. What is it that you're looking for as far as the timeline goes?
I think we have to use, the numbers from our audited financial statement. Because those are the most accurate, and otherwise throughout the year, things are changing and moving, right? So did you have any recommendations, Ed?
Well, what I would think is normally the financial profile is released towards the end of February, in the month of February. So at that point, we probably, in conjunction with that, also kind of reiterate what our reserves, because it's all our audited financial statement that this report is created with, as well as then we could also refer to, based on our financial statements, here's what our reserves are set aside for, and how they come up with the number that's in comparison to cohorts as well as the provincial average. So if it works for the board, then we probably plan for that to occur at the same time as the financial profile is released. Then we'd also compile it, and like I said, create somewhat of a separate document that just pulls out the reserves and surpluses component, and then provides these two charts, some script around what the meaning of the charts are, and then also the detail with regards to reserves and of the jurisdiction at the start of the school year or at our fiscal year end.
Okay.
So, but that would be, like I said, that would happen in February. So to make sure that everything's kind of consistent.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking about if we should use use what we have from last year.
Yeah, I could draft something based on this financial profile and our audited financial statements for our reserves. So you've got something that's current, quote unquote, until we have new financial information. And then we produce a new document for trustees based on that new financial information. Again, in my mind, what we start there, what we might, I might expand that in terms of information on the current year budget and student enrollment, and expand the document that the trustees have on hand, so that there's kind of a financial synopsis easily available to them. But that's something in the back of my mind I've been playing with as well. But I can see that this being kind of a base, and then we look at updating as we move along with different aspects of it.
Okay. Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah. Okay, so 7.8 board self-evaluation. So I'm going to pass this over to Trustee Effon to speak to.
So I believe last time we all had our presentation from Kim Pasola with his company, the third sector services, to really look to help us revamp our self-evaluation processes over there. So we should be able to make a decision today as to if we go in year or nay, because the last time we just wanted to go over a few things or rethink about some few things here. So that's where we are today. Either than that, anybody have questions, especially Donna? You were wanting to rethink about appointing.
Yeah. I still feel a concern of having someone, I know it's a different hat, but he is someone from a different board doing an evaluation on the trustees in our board. It still doesn't sit really good with me. That's just how I feel. Maybe everybody feels different, and that's fine. I'll go with the will of the board, but if we have a vote, but it just doesn't sit good with me. I like the idea of the self-evaluation and all the things that I liked everything about it. He seems very nice. It's just because he's on a different board.
But remember, we're talking about professionalism here as well, right? Personality and professionalisms are always different, and that's the way. And you heard Kim explain that very rightfully so, that he keeps everything separate from his role as well on a different board, and that he's always left it that way. And it's even our choice to even make it known that he is the one facilitating anything for us. So that's, Liz, what's your trust? So you have any?
Well, to me, Henry, it does feel like a conflict of interest. And I've said that before. And I still feel the same way. On the other hand, if everybody wants it, I'll go along with it.
Okay. Dan, any comments?
I do not have an issue with it. I think he'll be professional and might be able to provide some particular insight because of that fact, but will of the board, I'm fine with that as well.
Okay.
So do we take a vote on this or what?
Yeah, we will have to have a vote. So our original motion back in the fall was to go with ASBA for both the board self-evaluation and the superintendent evaluation. So now the process would be to rescind that motion and then have
Motion.
one motion, I guess, for, or we could have two motions for the new company to do the board self-evaluation and remain with ASBA for the superintendent evaluation. So the one thing I have, I did appreciate the presentation by Kim. I think he's very professional about, helping us move forward in our evaluation process. And he has a lot of experience, and he has that trustee experience, which I think would be very valuable to help us, in the direction that we're trying to go. So I do not believe there is a conflict at all. What I wanted to make sure was that our motion was open to being transparent in our for our board meeting. That's what I was concerned about when I asked that question. So anyhow, it has to be a public motion and it has to be on our books, and that's how we have to proceed.
Mr.
Madam
Laka,
Chair,
Okay, Charlie, go ahead.
go ahead.
I guess I'm just picturing the process here. I think you have to make a motion to rescind the other motion. If it gets defeated, it's dead. That means
Yeah.
it's not the will of the board to proceed, and then you worry about what motions might come after if it's rescinded.
So I believe that we should go forward with, what we need to do here. And we've had time to think about it over the last month. So the motion that would have to be rescinded is number 34 there. So anyhow, we'll start with that. And if it passes, then we know that we can proceed to the next one. So is there somebody willing to rescind this motion?
Madam Chair, I rescind that motion. That the board rescind motion number 35-2021, which states that the board approved the ASBA to facilitate the September 2021 superintendent board. So we'll take out the superintendent because we're doing just the one.
Trustee Efron, I believe you have to rescind the entire motion.
Or the
You
entire
can't-
motion?
You can't segment your rescindment.
Okay, that the board rescind the motion on 34-2021, which states that the board approved the ASBA to facilitate the September 2021 superintendent and board self-evaluation.
Okay, any comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor, and I just need to see the whole screen. Okay, all those in favor?
This is to
Okay.
rescind the motion.
To rescind the motion, yeah. So 3, and those opposed? 1. So trustees Fidich, which way did you vote? To rescind the motion? Okay, so 4 against 1. So that motion is carried. Okay, trustee Efron, are you continuing on with the next motion?
Yes, as soon as Mr. Laka projects that.
I'm afraid I don't have the facilitator's name. I'll need-
Sorry, no, I have the company name. Give me 1 second here. Okay. 1 second. Okay. That the board approve Third Sector Services, a division of Bread Capital Corporation. I can send that to you at that. Okay, let me give it to you. Third Sector Services. No, third, THIRD, yeah, Sector Services. Okay, yeah, services. Then into a column, a division of Brett Capital Services. BRETT Capital Corporation. Sorry, corporation. Sorry. There you go. To facilitate the September 2021 board self-evaluation.
Okay, Thank you, Trustee Afan. Any comments or questions? Okay, I will call the question then. All those in favor? And I just need to see the whole screen. Okay, all those in favor? Okay. 3 in favor. So,
Michelle, just one sec. Can you repeat the question? I'm not sure I understood it.
no, I asked if everyone is in favor of the motion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay, all those in favor.
I am.
Okay. And that is for all those opposed. Okay, 4 in favor, 1 opposed, so that motion is carried. Thank you.
We'll go back there. We have the third motion.
Okay, and we have 1 more to do.
That the board approve the ASBA to facilitate the September 2021 superintendent evaluation.
Okay, any comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, thank you, and that's carried unanimously. Okay, thank you, everybody. So Trustee Afan, you will be in contact to
Yeah,
start that process? Okay,
yeah, with third sector. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Okay, so our next item are Zone 2-3 position statements. So I think I sent you the 2 pages, right? It's the Zone 2-3 statements are on pages 1 and 2 of the zone agenda that was just recently sent out. There may be some that I don't know if any more will come. I'm not sure, but basically from Zone 2-3, only 6 can go forward. But we need to get an idea what everybody thinks about these position statements so that I can vote properly on Friday. So we will be looking at these on Friday.
Those are the correct ones, Madam Chair.
Pardon me?
Those are the correct ones, Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, so the first one is about connectivity, internet access, and I believe we would all be in favor of that. The next one, Evergreen Catholic, just really removing the requirement for the ministerial approval for the transfer from accumulated surplus funds. And we were told, I believe, that this was going to be temporary. Is that correct, Ed?
Ministerial approval? Yeah, when they changed the regulation and the act for it, I don't believe it would be temporary.
Oh, okay. But we used to be able to just do this, right? Now we have to ask for,
That's right.
now we have to request for approval. So again, it's about making our own decisions and local decision making. So I would expect that we would be in favor of this.
Yes.
The next one, environmental education. Now, this is an interesting one, and they did a lot of work, and it was the Fort McMurray Public Board that did a lot of work for this. There's a lot of background on this one, and they actually wanted it to go forward as an emergent item so that it would be part of the process at the spring general meeting. as ours is as well. So I'm not sure which way that'll go, but I believe the way that it was presented last time is that environmental education only starts in grade 6. So what they're asking for is that it is just more involved starting in kindergarten to grade 12. So then we'll move down to the next one, please. Now the next one is ours, and we do have an issue with it. So, so I will just go over how we can handle this. So it came back. We did submit it to the ASBA for the spring general meeting. It came back and they said it doesn't qualify because of the 2 position statements that are already on the books. So 7.18 and 11.8. And I did email those to you this morning, I believe. Yeah, they're there. So what we need to decide here is how to go forward. So if the board is in favor of this process, I'm going to just suggest it. It continues that we continue at the zone level on Friday, and it does get vetted and it does go forward. But at the time that I go with the presentation to the zone 2-3 membership, I would like to ask PDAC, who's the vice chair of ASBA, Trina, if she would make a comment on how our position statement was rejected, exactly why, and just identifying these 2 position statements that are there already. And the way that I see our position statement is that we've expanded it and we've added the ministries. These 2 position statements they both refer to mental health supports. Ours is expanded more, and I believe it strengthens these 2 statements. So there'll be a conversation, and hopefully Trina will give some insight to that. And then I would like to present that exactly in that way, that what we have is strengthening what's there already. We know that we're going to be dealing with a lot more situations in the fall, and we need this messaging to go to government sooner rather than later. So most likely it will pass through at the zone level, but then we still have the opportunity to take it to the floor at the spring general meeting as our request for an emergent item, even though PDAC has rejected it, on the grounds that we believe that it strengthens these 2 statements that are there already. And there's more wording in there that I can work on. But also we want the floor to decide if it's emergent. Even though I have total respect for the work of the PDAC committee, and I totally believe that they did do everything, they followed their procedures and their policy. And and then the floor will decide if it's emergent. If it's not emergent, it still can proceed to the fall general meeting. So it's not like we're going to lose it if we continue down this path. And that's what I need feedback from trustees on. If we're all in agreement to proceed in this manner.
Yes, Madam Chair. You can. Simply because ours very specific as to the cross-ministry collaboration we're looking at. If we proceed right into the fall, then we may force ASBA's hands into taking these off the books and replacing it with our strengthening. Yeah. That's what I would. So thank you. Continue the good work at Zone 2-3, and let's see how she proceed.
Yeah. And I'm totally respectful of the whole process. Absolutely, ASBA, they do great work. But then again, we see opportunity to bring this forward. And maybe I need to rewrite a bit more, and I need to present it, with with more information or more, our own reasons why we would like to see these position statements strengthened. So does anybody else have any other comments, or do they support this process? Does everybody understand the process? Go ahead, Trustee Tugwood.
I support the process, and I agree with you that it does strengthen those two. And I would like to see it go to the floor in the spring general meeting and be voted on.
Okay.
So I agree.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Sirwa?
Yes, these are important issues and I also support. Yeah.
Okay, and you support it going to the spring general meeting?
I do.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Trustee Svidich?
Yep, I'm in support of that for sure. You bet.
Okay, so we will proceed that way. And Trustee Sirwa and Trustee Tugwood, you are at the Zone 2-3 meeting on Friday. So we'll just continue work on it in that process. And then at least it's vetted and we won't lose it if it doesn't make it at the spring general meeting, but it'll still make it to the fall general meeting. Okay, good.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so we probably have to take a recess now. We will come back to these position statements and just finish off ASBA when we come back. So I will advise trustees when we're going to come back online to finish up our board meeting, and Charlie will let staff know when we're back. Okay.